At 6:18 a.m., the sound began. Thud, thud, thud. It came from the duplex at the end of Alder Street, a quiet place where mornings usually smelled like toast and lawn clippings. The sound was steady, rhythmic, almost comforting. Mrs. Bennett, half asleep with her tea cooling in her hands, smiled faintly. "Someone's up early," she murmured, "chopping wood." Across the street, Mr. Hale thought the same thing. Winter was coming. People prepared. No one called the police. That decision would echo for the rest of their lives. Earlier that night, Grace Miller had gone to bed believing she was safe. She texted her best friend a photo of her dog curled at her feet. Home. Finally. She locked the door. She double-checked the windows. She ignored the pit in her stomach she'd learned to dismiss over the years. Her husband, Evan, was already asleep, or pretending to be. He'd been quiet lately. Too quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like pressure behind glass. At 1:12 a.m., Grace woke to movement, not loud, careful. She whispered his name. No answer. By the time the neighbors heard the sound in the morning, Grace could no longer scream. The police arrived at 7:03 a.m. 2 officers, routine call. "Domestic disturbance," the dispatcher said. "Possibly power tools." The front door was unlocked. That detail mattered later. Inside, the house was unnaturally neat. No overturned furniture, no shattered glass, just silence and the smell. Metal and pine and something the officers would later struggle to describe. They followed the sound to the garage. The door was half open. Evan stood inside, sleeves rolled, breathing evenly. In his hands was an axe, freshly cleaned. Leaning against the wall beside him was a log splitter, unplugged. He looked up and smiled. "Oh," he said, "I didn't hear you." Behind him, the floor told the truth the neighbors hadn't wanted to imagine. The news vans came fast. Quiet neighborhood shaken. Neighbors heard chopping, did nothing. The phrase repeated like a curse. Mrs. Bennett cried on camera. Mr. Hale stared at the pavement. Everyone explained themselves the same way. It sounded normal. That was the cruelest irony of all. Violence rarely announces itself. It borrows familiar sounds. It hides behind routines. It counts on politeness and doubt and the human instinct to mind one's business. Evan didn't resist arrest. He didn't shout. He asked for water. He corrected the officer who called Grace his wife. "Ex-wife," he said calmly. "Soon." That word, soon, slid into the case file like a warning no one had read in time. The power shifted in the interrogation room. At first, Evan played the part perfectly. Grief-stricken, confused. He spoke of stress, of sleepless nights, of a marriage that had slipped through his fingers. He cried at the right moments. He used Grace's name often. Then Detective Nora Alvarez slid a single photo across the table. A restraining order, filed 6 weeks earlier, violated twice. Evan's tears stopped mid-breath. "You said everything was fine," Alvarez said. Evan leaned back, eyes cold now. She exaggerated. Alvarez waited. Silence pressed in. "The sound," she said finally. "Why keep going when you knew people could hear?" Evan smiled. "Because," he said, "they wouldn't believe it." That was the moment the room changed. The moment he realized the world he'd counted on, quiet neighbors, ignored warnings, normal sounds, had finally turned on him. At trial, the prosecution played the 911 call from Mrs. Bennett. Her voice shook. "I thought it was wood," she said. "I swear, I thought it was wood." The defense argued insanity, temporary loss of control. A man pushed too far. Then Alvarez took the stand. She showed the jury the timeline, the unplugged splitter, the cleaned axe, the texts Evan sent hours before Grace died. "You'll see. Tomorrow will be different. Premeditation doesn't always look like rage. Sometimes it looks like patience." The jury didn't deliberate long. Guilty. Life without parole. Justice, at last, spoke louder than routine. Alder Street changed after that. People flinched at sudden noises. Curtains stayed open. Neighbors learned each other's names. The city installed street cameras. Workshops were held. Pamphlets distributed. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Grace's story became a lesson told at community meetings and late-night conversations. Her photo, smiling, alive, was printed beside the warning. The sound of chopping wood was never just the sound of chopping wood again. But closure is a fragile thing. Weeks after the sentencing, Detective Alvarez received a call from the evidence unit. "There's something you should see," they said. It was audio, pulled from a smart speaker in the Miller garage, a device Evan had forgotten. At 6:16 a.m., 2 minutes before the neighbors noticed anything, a second sound joined the rhythm. Footsteps. Not Evan's. Another voice, low, urgent. "Do it now," the voice said. Alvarez felt her stomach drop. The case file had one suspect. The house had held 2 people. As the audio cut off, a final sound echoed, something heavy being dragged across concrete. Alvarez stared at the waveform on her screen, because if Evan hadn't been alone, then the sound the neighbors heard wasn't just violence, it was coordination. And somewhere, someone who knew how to make horror sound ordinary was still listening.